Hey everybody, it's Marky. Wait a minute here. Hey everybody, it's Marky Bilson, and one of the guys I love talking football with. I love talking football with a lot of great writers. Joe Rexrode of the Tennessean. I'm talking pro football. Ed Bouchette, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and this guy knows something about football. Vito Stellino. You'll find him at vitostellino.com. He's a Pro Football Hall of Fame voter. Still covers the NFL. Active on Twitter. A lot of stuff to say. At one time, absolutely viewed, I think, as the best football writer in America, because I remember the column you used to do at the Sporting News, and it was such a delight to read that column every week. This was when you also were covering football for the Washington Post. I mentioned some other of the events. I've been covering football way back from the...
Actually, it was the Baltimore Sun, but anyway.
It was the Baltimore Sun. I'm sorry, because you cover the Colts, and then I was thinking you cover the Redskins. And yeah, who else was the Sun going to cover in, after 83? Thank you, Vito. Anyway, the long introduction. How do you do, Vito? It's nice to have you here. And I guess let's go right to the bat here. Everybody talking about the draft. How come it is that we don't know right now what the Cleveland Browns are going to do with that first round pick? I mean, you covered football in these drafts. You knew that the Colts are going to take Elway even when they didn't have any chance to sign him and all this. So why haven't the Browns gotten that head start on a signing period yet?
Well, there's no need to get a head start in the signing period now because of the rookie salary cap. We already know who the first pick is, what his contract's going to be, regardless of who he is or what position he plays. So, in the old days, there was an advantage to get him signed before the draft, and then you could get him into your off-season program right away, or knowing he'd be there to start training camp, because players used to hold out in those days. But now, ever since 2011, with the rookie signing cap, there's no advantage to doing it in advance, and everybody, they always want to wait and figure, hey, you never know what develops at the last minute, or who calls, or whatever. So Joe's saying they don't do something until they have to.
Well, who do you think they're going to take? Because I know that they were high on Josh Allen. But the story comes out now that I guess he had offensive tweets of years ago back in high school and such. I don't think it's going to damn him for life, but it might damn him enough not to be the first pick of the draft. And for that matter, I don't know how high Allen is on the other team's draft boards. Okay, you got Baker Mayfield with his Heisman Trophy, and his stock seems to be rising. The safe pick seems to be Sam Darnold. Who do you think that the Cleveland Browns are going to make the top pick in the draft?
I just have no idea. For weeks there's been Darnold, and now all of a sudden the buzz is changing. Now, what causes this buzz? I mean, there's been some theory that the general manager didn't tell Hugh Jackson until last night who he was drafting, and then bingo, all of a sudden it's all over the place. And of course, then there's another theory that if she was the source, Dorsey didn't tell him, that's not really who he's going to take. So, as I say, I just wait till it happens. It's almost pointless to, beat it to death now when we'll know in 8 hours who it is, or 7 hours.
I'm trying to recall. I'm trying to recall a time where we really didn't know who was going to be selected number one overall. Usually we know that by now. When was the last time you can recall in the NFL draft we didn't know at this time who the number one pick was going to be?
Yeah, I really don't know. I'd have to go back year by year and check it out, so I'm not sure exactly. Yeah, I mean, a lot of years there's a consensus number one pick, and so everybody kind of knows who it's going to be. But this year there's so much different opinions on all these quarterbacks, and so there just seems to be no consensus. So without a consensus, we just have to wait and see what they do.
Okay, how has the position changed in let's go recent years here. I actually think that with the structure of the game, the new rules where basically, any tight end can go over the middle for 5 yards and he's got that open, catch if he has good hands and such, that the game has changed a lot since the days of, say, the 70s, when you were throwing, a lot of times, it was a 3rd and 10 type of thing, and you really were trying to get 20 yards a heave. I mean, now we have more of the short passing game, certainly after Bill Walsh. But what does a team look for in a quarterback now that maybe they didn't, let's say, 20 years ago?
Well, now there's more interest in the rhythm type passers. The short passing game is in vogue, so you don't need a Bradshaw type arm. Now, I mean, everybody would still like to have a Bradshaw type arm, so
Sure.
I still think they're looking for that, but there just aren't that many quarterbacks that have he was a great javelin thrower in high school, and so there are just not that many quarterbacks like that, so now teams have to kind of adjust and figure, well, an accurate short passer can also make sense in this day and age when teams aren't going for the bomb like they used to.
I remember Bradshaw being very successful on 3rd and short with bombs. I mean, won Super Bowl 10 with a bomb on 3rd and 5 when a lot of people thought that was going to be a down where, you ran the ball. Certainly that was play calling in 1975 and such. But we're talking to Vito Stellino a little bit about the NFL draft. I'm intrigued not only by who the Browns are going to take, because I'll tell you what, if you bring in my opinion, the right quarterback, as well as Bradley Chubb, to join Myles Garrett, I can see the Browns making a rise much the way that the Houston Texans have made a rise, what with Clowney and Watt, along with Deshaun Watson. Now, where I'm going, though, with that is, so let's see what the Browns do. This is very intriguing. But the Giants also, I don't know if they're going to go for what would seem to me to be a short fix, Saquon Barkley, playing around the offensive talent that they have, or if they'll draft a quarterback realizing that Eli Manning is 37 years old and, he's not going to be there that much longer. Which way do you think the Giants might be going? What are you hearing?
Well, everybody's predicting Barkley, but I think that's a real mistake. The quarterback, the running backs have just been so devalued. They're not even making as much money as they used to. And also with the running back teams play, 8 in the box to take the run away. If they take Barkley, he'll be one of the highest paid running backs in the league right off the bat, So I definitely would not take Barkley. If you want to take Chubb or a quarterback, I think that would be the way to go. So I'm really very curious, what Gettleman does with that pick, and is he going to take, Barkley or not? But I definitely would not go with a running back that high. The way the game is being played now.
I certainly understand that. I, did a commentary yesterday on why I wouldn't take offensive linemen high. I think it was Kurt Warner that put the Rams in the Super Bowl, not necessarily Orlando Pace, that sort of idea. But I want to ask you this, Vito Stellino, just assuming the Giants take Barkley. I have said on this show that, Eli might be 37, but he's not done yet. And if you could somehow get Odell Beckham Jr.'s head on straight, Saquon Barkley, and then a Dez Bryant who is saying, hey, Giants, you're the team I want to play for. I don't know how you're going to handle that locker room. I don't know how you're going to handle that that salary cap. But if you can get those 4 players on the field, I don't care if you were 3-13 last year. I don't think the Giants should have a punter if they could get those guys on there. Let me just ask you this. Do you think it is feasible that the Giants could sign Dez Bryant, as he has sort of hinted that's where he'd like to go?
Well, I think Dez wants more money than what anybody's offering him so far.
Sure.
That's why he
Charlie,
him in his prime with Beckham, oh man, that would be amazing. That would be Swan Stalwart type of territory. But, I just don't think he's in that category any longer.
I love those old Redskin teams that you used to cover and all this, but I'm loving the Steelers references. That sort of, the pride that people like me who lived in Pittsburgh in 1979 have, and we said that's the greatest team ever. No Packers, no Patriots, no Count. That's the greatest team. I love it, Vito Stellino, the references that you're making from the team that you covered back in the day. But anyway, I wanted to say the one thing, though, just to reiterate what you said about Bryant, I know Charlie Casserly has said that, Bryant can still get up and outmaneuver a defender for the ball. But the thing is, he's not getting the separation that he once did. So Dez is kind of now, evolving into the possession receiver, which is one of the reasons I said, well, how would this match up with Odell Beckham if you, did such a thing with the Giants? But it's out there. So we'll say with that. But yes, I think Dez is going to find that he's not going to have as much money as he'd like next year. Vito Stellino, let me move a little bit away from the draft. Although I want to get a little bit back to it, but you're down in Jacksonville. You've covered the Jacksonville Jaguars for many years, and you've told us on this show you don't think that the Jaguars are going to move, despite the fact Shad Khan, lots of business dealings internationally, especially in London, and it's coming out that he has a offer to buy Wembley Stadium today. Why would Shad Khan want to buy Wembley Stadium?
When you're a billionaire, you like bigger and better toys, I think, London is very important to the Jaguars, revenue stream. They are very, they're more transparent than most teams are. Just a week ago, they had their annual State of the Franchise press conference. Chief President talked for an hour and 20 minutes talking about the Jacksonville market, the challenges they face. And he likes to play. One of the reasons he plays in London is with that's 10%. Right now, it's 11% of the local revenue because the stadium's bigger and they can charge more than they charge in Jacksonville. But he said, but I think he wants to own the stadium, so he kind of, not to move the team there, but gives him a big say in the London market and what they do there, and kind of like protects his annual London game in case for some reason, the league might say, well, we want to, we'll skip you this year or something like that, but yeah, if you go on their website, Jaguars.com, they have a lot of credibility because they are very transparent about the challenges they face here. It's a small market, one of the smallest. It's a low-income market. They don't have, a lot of corporations here. And so they have a challenge in revenue. Of course, then they were losing for 10 years and had tarps on, and now they started winning. They're taking the tarps off. But even that, they have lower ticket prices than most teams simply because they weren't able to raise ticket prices while they were losing. And even this year, I think they only raised them like 2.3%. Again, when you have a market that's not as affluent as others. In fact, the military is a huge presence here. There's 150,000 retired military people here, plus 50,000 active military. Now, the active military, they're not great candidates for season tickets because, they move on.
Yeah.
But the retired military people, they actually make 50% more money than the civilians or the non-military people. I guess that's because, they've all got military pensions and then most of them, get another job. So they are doing a lot of things. I don't know if you heard about, they're going to build a dog park at the stadium.
I haven't heard that, but yeah, you're probably the premier sports writer playing what or covering what you have once called the stadium game. So the dog park at, I guess, used to be the Gator Bowl, but now it's Everhart Stadium. What about it there?
Well, one of their sponsor deals is with a something called Pet Paradise. It's a company that has dog parks, like particularly like near airports in big cities. And you know, if you're flying and you want to drop your dog off to be in a kennel for while you're traveling, then pick it up on the way back. And so they would make a sponsor deal, and they said, well, how about if we build a 2,000 square foot dog park in the end zone, or upper deck end zone with a pool for the dogs. And so the Jaguars said, oh, that sounds interesting. You know, they've got 2 pools for human beings already, you know.
Yeah.
And that gets a lot of notice. So the Jaguars are going for that. Now, there was actually some negative pushback against that. People thought it's kind of hokey or so, but it's another example that they've got to think outside the box, you know, in getting new revenue and sponsorship deals that other teams with more affluent areas don't have to do. And but they're very transparent about it, that these are the things you have to do when you're in a smaller market that doesn't have as much, much revenue. So, I mean, some people think, the people at Wembley Stadium is going to move the Jaguars there. No, it's, as he himself said, it makes if the Jaguars are stronger in London, that's better for the team in Jacksonville. And again, people say, well, they keep just saying that, but again, they have credibility because they're very open and honest and transparent about the challenges they face here. So I think that's part of the whole reason about buying the Wembley Stadium. And also, he's an international businessman. He's big into car bumpers, and you wouldn't think car bumpers would be that big a business, but it turned him into a billionaire. They were kind of the first ones to have car bumpers that was a one-piece thing. They're not like molded and welded together. So, but anyway, he likes being an international businessman. Owning Wembley gives him a little cachet, in Europe. And so I think that's all behind the Wembley purchase.
Well, the one thing, though, that I thought about, and I've heard you're talking about, Jacksonville, I do think they're going to stay and all this. And I always thought, if there's going to be a London team, I understand why the NFL wants to expand internationally. I think it's a tremendous business move. It's going to stink for some city. But I always looked at the Los Angeles Chargers, who are destined at best to be the Jets of Los Angeles. They lose franchise value if they move back to San Diego, but they don't if they move to London. And I've always looked upon that as a potential international team, the Chargers, if you will, based on what you said. But then when the NFL schedule came out, I saw where the Jaguars had their primo game against the defending Super Bowl champions, one that you ought to play in Jacksonville. They're playing it in London. How was that received in Jacksonville?
Well, there was some grumbling about losing a premier game like that, but again, they're building a fan base in London, so I mean that gives them merchandising opportunities there and stuff like that. So the Jacksonville people have kind of accepted it. It's kind of their price for having an NFL team. I mean, Jacksonville's right on the cusp of whether or not they can on their own support an NFL team, and because they don't have the corporations to buy tickets or luxury boxes and that type of thing. So there was some grumbling, but overall they kind of understand. Hey, this is the price of the team. Actually, I think putting a team in London is a terrible idea. What they could do is just play 8 games a year in London, and that would be like having a home team. People could have an 8-game season ticket pass for London games without having the hassle
Yeah.
go to London every year. I mean, the Jaguars do it for financial reasons, but a lot of teams would not want to, make that trip. You're going to have trouble signing free agents. I mean, to me, if you're 25 years old and you get a job in London for 4 or 5 years, you can visit all over Europe. That's a plus. But these are guys in their 20s who could afford to go to Europe. A lot of them don't have passports. They just, going to Europe doesn't appeal to them that much. So if you're a free agent, are you going to want to go to play in London and your family to see you has to fly across the ocean, that long a trip and all that? So I think you have trouble signing free agents. What do you do about, okay, your kicker needs replacing. You're going to bring in 3 kickers to work out in the third week of the season. So you got to fly them all the way out, from the mainland, that type of thing. I mean, there's just all kinds of obstacles. And then doing a few games, it's kind of an event. It's almost like, it's not so much about football, it's like the circus or the ice capades, that type of thing. But they just don't get the coverage. You read the London papers the week that these games take place, the stories are buried. They just don't get that much coverage. I mean, somebody said in London, imagine if Major League Baseball, minor league baseball, and college baseball were the 3 major sports.
Sure.
That's the way it is with soccer. I mean, it's soccer.
Yeah, sure, Premier League.
With soccer over there. And so to actually have a team there that people kind of follow, where they get that much coverage, I mean, there are just all kinds of problems. So to me, they're better off as long as people keep buying the tickets to just keep playing 3 games, 4 games, 5, maybe even up to 8, and without having to deal with having a team actually located there.
He's Vito Stellino. He brings up good points. He's on Tri-City Sports Now. How much